She said she heard about what's going on. Oh yeah! He said she heard about what's going on. But what's going on?
This episode
is brought to you by...
Are you ready to be the happiest person that you know? I hope so, and I want to be the guy to take you there. My name is Joe, and I'm a retired firefighter, and I'm the happiest person that I know, despite the fact that several years ago, I literally had a gun to my own head after an on-the-job injury forced me into a medical retirement, followed by the loss of several loved ones, and a dark battle with grief, PTSD, and depression. But I fought my way out of that, and I prevailed, and I gained unshakable joy and the amazing ability to be totally okay, even when my life circumstances aren't okay at all. And now, nothing brings me greater happiness than sharing with people the tools that led me here, which is exactly what I'm doing at the Grit, Growth, and Gratitude podcast. I'm dropping episodes every week that teach you how to maximize your happiness when times are good and barrel through any obstacle when times are rough. So subscribe now wherever you listen to podcasts, because you deserve to have way more thrive days than just survive days, and to have a kick-ass life that you enjoy. I'll see you there.
Benvenuti al fantastico show He Said She Heard. Chi è l'ospite di oggi, Mike?
Andersen Herminia.
Oh, welcome to our show. Could you repeat the name, Mike?
Andersen Herminia.
Let's welcome our guest today.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of He Said She Heard. I'm your host, Mike Fox, and we're right in the middle of the Best of Both Worlds season. What does that mean by the Best of Both Worlds? Well, we're doing skit episodes and we're doing interview episodes. This episode's an interview episode, but after you watch or listen to this episode, if you haven't checked out The Freudian Couple, the last episode, please check that out, because it was a reunion with buddies from my days of living in Washington, D.C. Blake Groban and Abraham Johnson crashed the party, and we redid one of our old classic skits, The Freudian Couple. So check that out, and also check out our merch store at www.hesaidSheheard.com. Click on Shop Now. There's a Freudian Couple t-shirt. Also, please check out the podcast of my guest joining me here today, Chingona Rising. My guest today is an author, public speaker, graphic designer, and podcaster. Please welcome Andersen Herminia. How are you, Andersen?
I am well, thank you, Mike. How are you?
Great, thanks. It's great to have you here. You know, what I love is about your podcast, and what everything that you do is you are taking difficult situations you've had in your life and you've transformed it into something positive, and you're inspiring other chicas, but you're also inspiring other men too, because I love it when I see people come out of something so tragic, something so heartbreaking that could easily send people way off the deep end and beyond, but you have managed to turn it into something positive. And that's why it's like, I got to have you on my show, because I was like, you know, you're bringing good vibes. So this will be a great conversation.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That's really what my goal is, what my passion is to put good vibes out there, and to let people know that it's okay to cry. It's okay to get therapy. It's okay to have a bad day. And you can also look like you've got it all together.
Yeah, people don't have to know we're going through something. They don't have to know that. You know? It's
like it's so like soul crushing. When I was a stay-at-home mom, I would see other people, you know, they talk about it so often, these curated Facebook pages or Instagram pages, and you think people's lives are so perfect. Exactly.
Look at my perfect teeth. Look at my trip to the Bahamas.
My perfect family, the perfect vacation, the perfect job, all of these things. And you constantly feel like, I'm not perfect, and what am I doing wrong? And I think the truth is, we're not doing anything wrong. And so I show myself crying, and I show myself triumphant, and I show myself appreciating myself, because I've spent so many years, you know, with with self-esteem issues that, you know, it may seem self-indulgent, but I'm like, hey, girl, you're 45, you're still doing your thing. So just feeling good about yourself all the way around. So if I want it to be contagious.
It is contagious. Yeah, because then people are just like, they are attracted to that positive energy, and they're like, well, I want some of that too. And they think, oh, is this something I got to take in pill form, powder form? Like, no. It's all natural.
No, you know, my therapist, years of therapy, and it's also, you know, exploring other ways of like finding peace in my life, because peace is, we've discussed joy. That's a big part of my life, but peace is too. I mean, I've lived so long with like chaos and heartache and upset and arguing that I just want peace. And so it's easier to find joy too when you protect your peace. And that's a really hard thing to learn.
It is hard to safeguard it. And especially it's just like, when one is like an emotional type of person, when one feels like the love with someone else and then someone just breaks it, it's hard to not show that. And it's hard to just not protect that, because then it's like, okay, we might feel that extreme joy, but then like we'll feel the opposite the next day because the person let us down. So it's so hard to have that necessary protection, not a wall, but some type of way to safeguard ourselves from like boundaries, you know. It's so easier said than done. It's something I still struggle with myself. Everybody does, I think.
I absolutely do. I absolutely struggle with that.
Same.
Because I am a deeply feeling person. And for many years, the way that I did deal with it was the wall and to push things down. And I still present it to people the same way. But when the pain came to me, the pain went down. And I didn't talk about it. I didn't deal with it. I just sucked it up. And one of the things I tell my sons is, you know, your feelings are valid. They need to come out. You need to talk about them. You need to try and wrap your mind around them, because if they're left inside of you, they will eat you up.
It's true.
And I've seen lots of people who, you know, I have been through a lot. And one of the things was my marriage. And I don't hate my ex-husband. I think he has a lot of pain that has eaten him because he doesn't know how to deal with it. And so, you know, it's about wanting to teach my boys and myself at the same time, because as we teach, we learn, to be more open with my own feelings and be more expressive so that I can address them. So it's kind of like this double-edged sword, right? Like you have to, it's hard. You make yourself vulnerable when you put your emotions out there, but you have to put your emotions out there to heal them. So finding the balance is tricky. And I've not found it. I do my best, you know, and some days you win and some days you lose. And one of the things I always tell people who ask me for advice is sometimes you have to count your wins. And sometimes your win is everybody's alive at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That's it.
Sometimes just doing the bare minimum is just enough sometimes. You know.
And depending on where you're at, I wrote about this the other day, you know, depending on where you're at, maybe the best you can do is move from the bed to the couch. Maybe the best you can do is get yourself dressed. That's the best you can do. And you know what? Good for you. You did it. You pushed yourself. And I absolutely was in those periods where the best I could do was get from the bed to the couch. Wow.
Our society. It's something that people do, especially here in our country. They feel that mental health is just something you just don't address. You just don't talk about. You suck it up. You bottle it up. And then one day it just comes off like a pressure valve. And that's why it's helpful, especially for for us dudes, it's like sometimes men they sometimes need to blow off steam, because if they don't, it's going to manifest itself into toxic anger.
And I think that was the root of a lot of what was happening in my marriage. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to fix what you don't think is broken. And he didn't think that it was broken. And I had to wish him peace and healing. And at a certain point, I had to leave. But it also was not that easy. It was a very, very long process, and it was scary. And I'm actually helping a friend right now who is leaving a marriage that has anger, volatility issues, emotional abuse involved. And it's difficult. And I keep telling her, are you sure that you're ready today? You don't do this for me. Don't do it because I think you should. I'm on your team. I'm on team peace. I'm not pro-divorce. I'm pro-peace. And whatever that looks like, that's what it is. I'm on your team. And so I remember people pressuring me, and I wasn't ready. I was a stay-at-home mom, and I didn't have an education, and I had 2 small children, and I was married in the Catholic Church, and I'm Mexican.
Catholic guilt, right?
Yeah, we had the big fat Mexican wedding. And so it was like, I felt like that was my lot in life. That was the choice I had made, and that was where I was at. And, I really believe that sometimes we're not strong enough to do things for ourselves. Or we may not think that we're worth doing something, but you have to find somebody who is worth doing it for. And I didn't think at that point in my life that I deserved better than being abused. And I thought, this is my life, this is my lot. But when my older son was 5 years old, stood up to his dad to protect me. I thought, this is the last time. He was afraid of his own shadow, my boy. Yeah. And he stood up to his dad, who he'd seen rage his entire life. Mm-hmm. And so I still cannot fathom or comprehend the courage that my 5-year-old came up with, was able to summon. And so for him and my younger son, they were worth it. They were worth growing up in peace. Wow. They deserved better than that. I might not have believed I did. I do now. But
at the moment, you probably didn't believe it.
Sometimes you just have to pull yourself out for someone else.
Yes.
And then you can find yourself after. But it's getting out. And however you can do it, wherever you find that drive, that's where it is.
Mm-hmm. I like how you say in your show description, and I'm relating this to what you were talking about, is you say, despite challenges, despite fear, despite trauma, despite whatever obstacles have been thrown at you, some days you will conquer, others you will feel conquered. Rising is found in the lessons we learn, the knowledge we share, and the strength we find in each other. Because at that moment you were just describing, that's not probably something you felt, but you're probably just thinking, I just got to get out of this toxic situation. It's not good for me or my children.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to, I look at myself not as raising boys, but as raising men. Yes. And I did not want to raise men who were going to either think it was acceptable to hurt people or think it was acceptable to hurt me. And so the idea of, not only did I do it for them, I did it for future partners, so that those future partners never looked at me and said, you didn't teach your kids better than this. They do this because of you. You allowed it. One thing I do really want to say is the idea of I just said, and as I've delved further into this and I've done some writing, I wrote a chapter for a book recently about my experience in my marriage.
Yes.
And I just said that how could you have allowed this? And so often we say about women who are abused, how could you allow this to happen? How could you stay so long? How could you have accepted this? Instead of saying, what is wrong with him or her that they are doing this? What is wrong? What is hurt in you, the person, the perpetrator, the abuser, that you are doing this?
Yeah.
The onus is put on the person that's in the weakest position.
Yeah.
And, what kind of woman allows herself to be treated that way? Society asks us.
Yeah.
A weak woman, a pathetic woman, a woman who, can't take care of herself.
Yeah.
So when I found myself in that position,
Yeah.
I thought, that's who I've become.
Wow.
And I had to kind of break loose from that idea of what kind of woman. And there were a couple women in my life that I had a great deal of respect, still have a great deal of respect for, who both very quietly said to me, we've gone through this too and you'll be all right. And I thought, what? You are so strong and intelligent and accomplished. You're not weak at all. You're not the kind of woman who allows this to happen to herself. And it was like, it shook that off of me. And it gave me the hope that I could be something more than I believed I was capable of in that moment. And so, I didn't believe it just yet, but one of the things I do feel very strongly about is that strong, intelligent women get abused, because the thing with abuse is you don't get punched on the first date. It's a progression that I think, people who have been lucky enough to not experience this, it's a gradual pushing of the line, just one little touch of the line. And by the time you realize that the line even started moving, it's already way over here. You're picking yourself up off the floor.
Yeah.
And it's like, what on earth? How did I get here? Well, one little tiny millimeter at a time. And so those women were inspirations to me.
Yes.
And they made me feel like it was possible. And so they were instrumental.
Yeah. So you think that's what maybe you needed, was other people who walked down that dangerous road before, right?
Mm-hmm. I think abusers get to continue abusing because of silence.
Yes.
And because of shame. I think the people who are victimized, survivors, they carry the shame of what's being done to them.
Yes.
Because clearly, if you're doing it, you have no shame. And so, the one who's in the weakest position carries the shame. And then society's giving us a nice heaping helping of shame as well, because what kind of mother would allow her children to grow up in a house like this? But you also don't want your children to come from a broken home, do you? So it's contradictory messages that you ultimately, I said to someone yesterday, actually, I didn't have an education. I didn't have a job. I had 2 kids, and I jumped off a cliff with one kid under each arm and hoped that saying about sprouting wings on the way down was true. Because if it wasn't, but it was all I had. And whatever was out there was better than where we were at.
Absolutely.
And it was.
Wow. That's amazing. It's just, it's so touching too that like you've been through all of this, and now you're the one that's helping these other women out. You know, you're a voice for them and an inspiration. What type of responses have you gotten from other women that have been through similar situations? What type of things have they said to you after hearing you on your podcast or talking to you personally about their situation?
You're making me cry now.
I'm sorry.
I'm starting out, so my reach isn't tremendous. My reach isn't like yours yet.
Oh.
My hope is that I can touch people who will then touch other people.
Yes.
But I've gotten, messages from people saying, thank you so much for putting voice to this. I don't feel as alone. I have had mothers whose daughters are in similar situations say, I forwarded your podcast to my daughter when I heard that my podcast, my Instagram was forwarded to a daughter that a mother worries about, to say it's possible to leave. It's possible to heal.
Possible.
It's possible.
Yeah.
And because I do try and be honest about it, I have bad days. Just last night, I had a lot of self-doubt. And, for lack of a better term, my boyfriend was talked me through it and was pointing things, he was trying to help me. And, I don't talk about him at all in any part of Chingona Rising, primarily because I think that what I'm doing is a self journey, and it's not about, and that's not about having someone with you necessarily. I didn't start dating for 5 years after I was divorced because I felt like I was terrified I would pick the same kind of person, and that I would end up in a similar mess if I didn't heal myself.
Yeah.
And this time, this person wasn't going to be the father of my sons.
Yeah.
And what was that going to mean for them? And so I say, I hide out in academia, and that seems to have worked for me. Some people drink, some people do drugs. I go to college. And so I worked really hard, got into MSU, and my boys and I moved to campus. Everything was an adventure.
Yeah.
The ability they saved me in more ways than one. And everybody says, you give them so much credit. You did it. And I said, but they inspired me. I might still be there if not for them. And then they showed me how to be a kid again and how to live life with wonder.
Yes.
And awe. And it was contagious. And so everything was exciting. And I'm super, I'd been stifling who I am for a very long time, but it was like an invitation to just be me.
Yeah.
All of it.
That takes courage to be you. It takes a lot of courage because you know what it takes? It takes letting go, and that's something that we have a hard time doing.
And it takes, the other thing too is that I find, and I was put in an awkward situation because I was an undergrad at a traditional university. So my cohort was 19, 20-year-old kids. And here I am, 40. And I'm thinking, this is going to be ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I'll tell you, I learned so much from those kids. There certainly we're the ones that we're like, ooh, don't know that I want you running the world, but I learned to open myself up to learn from any source, whether it was a 19-year-old kid who was going through something, or whether it was my child who was going through something, or teaching me something. You can learn something just about everywhere. One of the greatest compliments I've ever received is, I think I might have told you this previously. Someone told me, you're probably the smartest person in 90% of the rooms that you're in, but you have no idea because you're so busy trying to figure out what you can learn. And it's like, it doesn't matter what room I'm in. I'm excited. I want to learn. What do you have to say? Well, what do you think about that? And even if I don't agree with someone, I genuinely want to hear their perspective on it to try and understand. And understanding isn't equal to agreement. And I think that's one of the things that we get very wrong too.
Yeah.
You can listen, understand, and still not agree in the end.
I like that.
And that's okay. So I think that's one of the problems that we have with the public discourse right now is you either see it my way or you're wrong.
Yeah, and that's like a dictatorship in a way. It doesn't encourage independent thinking. It doesn't encourage us to be our natural self.
Absolutely.
Are you ready to be the happiest person that you know? I hope so, and I want to be the guy to take you there. My name is Joe, and I'm a retired firefighter, and I'm the happiest person that I know, despite the fact that several years ago, I literally had a gun to my own head after an on-the-job injury forced me into a medical retirement, followed by the loss of several loved ones, and a dark battle with grief, PTSD, and depression. But I fought my way out of that, and I prevailed, and I gained unshakable joy and the amazing ability to be totally okay, even when my life circumstances aren't okay at all. And now, nothing brings me greater happiness than sharing with people the tools that led me here, which is exactly what I'm doing at the Grit, Growth, and Gratitude podcast. I'm dropping episodes every week that teach you how to maximize your happiness when times are good and barrel through any obstacle when times are rough. So subscribe now wherever you listen to podcasts, because you deserve to have way more thrive days than just survive days, and to have a kick-ass life that you enjoy. I'll see you there.
I was a much better parent before I had children. Because I had it all figured out. And man, did they humble me. And it was like, my 14-year-old, I was frustrated with him. He was frustrated with me. He's very, very smart. He's curious about everything, asks lots of questions. And he just has a really hard time getting his work in. And so I was so frustrated, and I said, I have been fighting you for 14 years. And I was like, I'm tired. And so, a week or so later, he came to me and said, Mom, it really, something you said has been hurting me. And I said, what's that? And he said, you told me that you've been fighting me for 14 years. And I was like, buddy, first of all, thank you for coming to me with that. I'm sorry that it hurt your feelings. I was really frustrated. And I said, that's not an excuse, but that's where I was at. And I said, we have butted heads. I said, and the fact of the matter is, you've made me a better person. I know I'm better for it. I like to hope that you're better for it. I said, so have we been fighting each other for 14 years? Yep, sure have. But we've also been making each other better for 14 years. So going back to feelings and having an open dialogue with them about it. And you had mentioned, as a man, there are other complexities that come with that of course I will never understand, but I do want my boys to know that their feelings are valid.
I think our society dictates too to us men. It's like we're not allowed to express ourselves in a tender way. And
Absolutely.
that's, I think, what leads men to becoming monsters like that, because
Absolutely.
they feel that way. But if it's not someone else that they try to destroy, they destroy themselves. So it comes out in one harmful way. All because they don't let themselves feel that feeling. Feel that
Absolutely.
sadness. There's an old song from the 60s. It was called Had to Cry Today. Blind Faith. Yeah, that's it. And I was thinking, yeah, that's true. Sometimes people have to, and that's coming from a man's point of view. So I thought, okay, that makes sense. And especially a lot of the icons out there that are banned, they don't. There's more so today, but a lot of them don't kind of wear their heart in their sleeves. And I think that's what we need people like that to kind of show people that, hey, it's okay.
I completely agree. I didn't always see it that way. I didn't understand that because I got divorced, and I may have actually been in the process of preparing for it, and I was going to therapy, and I said to my therapist, I can't cry at home because, what will the boys think? And he said that you're human. I thought, well, how are they? I need them to trust that the captain of the ship isn't falling apart. And he said, they can still trust that the captain of the ship isn't falling apart because the captain will pull themselves back together. And I said, but I'm afraid if I start crying, I won't stop crying. And he said, trust me, you're the queen of bottling up your emotions. You'll put that stopper right back on there. So it's like, it sounds so silly, but it takes practice. And so I realized that my kids did need to see me cry, and they did need to see me fail, and they did need to see me hurt. I got some really great feedback, and the hiring manager just said, I think that your talents are better suited for a different position than this one. I think you'll be bored to tears. We'll waste your talent. It was she called me herself. We know how rare that is, that someone takes time out. I didn't just get an email or anything like that. So my son knew that I was expecting the response, and he was like, well, and I said, didn't get the job. And he said, oh, Mom, I'm so sorry. And I said, thanks, buddy. I said, you know what? I said, she had some really great feedback, and I'm going to hold on to that long term. I said, but that doesn't mean I'm not disappointed and upset. I said, I'm going to go into my bedroom and set a timer for 1 hour, and I'm going to cry. And I said, you'll probably hear me. Just know that I'm okay. And when that timer goes off, I'm going to get up and make dinner, and we're back to life. I said, but I need to just kind of let a little off the top. And he was like, okay, I'll see you when you come out. And I came out, and he says, could you use a hug? I said, that would be fantastic. Gave me a hug, and I made dinner, and off we went. So there's it's hard being human in front of our kids.
It is.
But it is, I believe,
necessary.
What they need.
It's very necessary, yeah. Because then they start to see, okay, I'm not going to get it right in the first try. I'm not going to get it right in the second try. I might have to try something else, or just try doing it a different way. Okay. But it's okay, because the worst thing we could do is beat ourselves up when we're already dealing with other variables coming at us that we can't avoid. So why listen to society's voices and say, come on, you can't pull yourself together.
Society doesn't pay my bills. So it's like, that's something I kind of came around to. Mm-hmm. I did grow up. In the Latino culture, there's a lot of, what are people going to think? What will people think?
Yes.
And so I had to come to this point of, you know what? I'm a divorcee. I'm a single mom. I have, boys who I can't take out in public without embarrassing me. Mm-hmm. I have, my life was crazy. And at some point I decided I was either going to go insane, become a shut-in, or stop caring. And it doesn't mean I don't care at all. You know, there are times where I care a little more than I would like to.
Yeah.
It's a process. It's all a process. I don't
join the club.
But being able to step back and say, you don't pay my bills.
That's
You know?
right.
And one of the things that has really driven me has been, you know, Brandi Brown is a big advocate for the man in the arena. You know, if you're not taking risks and if you're not doing your thing and in there doing life the best you can, I don't care what you have to say. I heard something the other day that said, don't ever take criticism from someone you wouldn't seek advice from.
I like that.
And I thought, ooh, that's good.
Especially, yeah. Especially that criticism is coming from the head and not from up here. Because you could see the vast difference of what's motivating the criticism.
Yes.
You can always tell.
You can always tell. And there's a young woman that I mentor. She's about to graduate from college, and she's going out into the world. And she knows that I've had phenomenal mentors, and I've had people dressed as mentors. And she said, how do you know the difference? I said, you don't always know the difference. I said, but there are some commonalities I found. I said, one of them is if the person achieved what they have on their own. If it was their achievement or if it was handed to them. That's a big one. If they are happy with where they're at. Because you can have something handed to you and be just over the moon happy with where you're at. But if you're not happy, that's another thing. Are you somebody who is threatening to them? Are you going somewhere that they wish they had the nerve to go? Because I actually, when I left my marriage, I had the most entry-level position that you could possibly have. And I started college. I was turned down first by Michigan State, and I really wanted to go there. And my academic record was 25 years old, and it was significantly less than stellar, so I don't blame them for turning me down. But I had to go somewhere else and do a year there and then come back and say, see, I can do it. But in that time, there was a person who I had a great deal of respect for who did everything in the right order and made all of the safe choices and all of the right choices, and I don't think was very happy with where they were at. And here I was taking risks and things were falling into place, and that's not how it's supposed to work. And actually, in so many words, told me, no one will ever see you as anything more than a secretary. And that person I was going to school for writing. My major was writing, and they were a graphic designer. And I said to my son, you know what I did? Recently I told him, I said, do you know what I did when I left that office? And he said, what? I said, I added a graphic design minor. And thought, I'll show you.
Yeah.
So,
you did.
And I did.
Yeah.
And I am. And, the more I've achieved, the more I've done on my own, the less I need to show anybody anything. It's about where I want to go.
About where you want to go.
But one of the things I always used to do is, and I'll still do it from time to time if I feel like I'm low or my boys are low, is take a dry erase marker right on the mirror in the morning. Right now mine says, put on your biggest hoops, your boldest lipstick, and your baddest bitch energy, because and so like first thing in the morning. And can I swear? For a long time, the permanent across the top of the mirror was, don't quit. You still have a few motherfuckers to prove wrong. And so I was like, I do. But now I have me to prove right. And that's a whole different, it's a shift. You take what you can to fuel you. But the shift to now proving myself right is amazing. I got into the master's program that I wanted to get into.
Oh, that's amazing.
And it's funny you were talking about failing. I'm fascinated with failure.
Me too.
I kind of want to say I love it. And the research that I proposed was the rhetoric of failure, how we talk about it.
Yeah.
And, we have that saying, oh, nothing ever goes to plan. But then when it doesn't, it's like a personal affront. Mm-hmm. Like you take it so personally, and it's like, no. This is part of it. This is part of it. And what you see on Facebook and Instagram, those things are typically built on a mountain of failures.
Yes.
I want mine, at least. And so I have lots of failures behind me, but you get to also draw strength from them.
Yeah.
And, there really isn't anything I'm going to face that I think is harder than what I've already faced. So there are a lot of times where I think, you know what, bigger and badder have tried. I got my hoops on. We're good. Sometimes you can't even see the way forward, but you just have to keep putting the feet one foot in front of the other. And as far as like something we had discussed is in Latino culture, like mental health is not discussed.
Yeah.
And like seeing a therapist it didn't used to be typical.
No.
I particularly, I want to help whoever, if I can help somebody get out of a situation or give them hope that it's possible, then I don't care who they are. Primarily, it started out and those little tiny wins get you to the bigger ones.
Yes, they do.
And the failures get you to the wins. And, one of the ways I look at it is it's just kind of a test for how bad you want it. Do you want it really bad? Because you're going to fail a few times and you need to want it bad enough to keep going back.
Yes.
You'd mentioned my podcast about Rocky. And I said, I don't think I'm particularly special, except that I can take a punch harder than most and get back up. And I think that most people are so much stronger than they realize, than they give themselves credit for.
It is true. That's why I love those underdog stories. I think we need to watch them. I think there's inspiration that we can draw from them for multiple reasons.
And the more times you get up, the stronger you realize you are.
Yes.
So it's like the reward for getting back up.
The reward for getting back up and trying again, trying it a different way, and maybe learning from others, which is what you've done. And you've taught others to do the same, which is amazing.
I hope so.
Yes. Check out her podcast, Chingona Rising. And before we go, I would like you to tell our viewers and listeners what a Chingona is.
A Chingona is a word that's been kind of reclaimed, and it's a badass. It's a badass woman. It's a woman.
And that's what you are.
Thank you. She does what she wants. She makes it happen. She doesn't think about what society's telling her to do. She sets a goal, and she gets to it. Yes. And it does take tears, and it does take struggle.
Blood,
she
sweat,
gets
and
there.
Tears.
She gets there. And rising is a verb. We don't arrive there. I'm continually rising. I'll still be rising if I'm doing it right at 80. I'm still getting there. So, yeah. I hope that more people, I hope more guys even see themselves. Chingon, that's the male.
Yeah. Well, I want to say a message to our Chingons. You got to support the Chingonas. Support your badass woman. If you're married to one, dating one, support them to be all that they can be, to have a voice. We need, come on, guys. Let's Let's do this. And be badasses ourselves, too.
Yes, absolutely. All of us.
All of us, yeah. Well, Andersen, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you. And please check out her podcast, Chingona Rising. My guest today has been Andersen Herminia. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Mike. Have a great day.
We conclude this episode with a song by John Paul. John Paul.
Alpha girls